All right, we're back here with another episode of the Nailing History podcast. I'm your host, Matt, and I'm going to bring in John, another remote recording session here. So I'm going to bring John in 3, 2, 1. Johnny boy.
Hey guys, how you doing? Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, he's been itching for this one for a couple days here. So
I've got more than a few pieces of paper in front of me. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed our little behind-the-scenes view of the sound check that we did on Tuesday. I have to say, we were just talking about this and before we got on, and I just wanted to get this on record. My facts about Alice Cooper were deemed wrong.
Which facts?
My dad said that he was in politics, right?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Like I looked it up on Wikipedia, and he was after he came out with a song in 72 called like "Elect Me" or something like that. He ran for president as a joke for every election since then. And he, in fact, the complete opposite. He feels that rock and roll, that politics should remain out of rock and roll. So, like, you know, he doesn't like when people do rock the vote or anything like that because it kind of spoils the
fun of it. So it's kind of it's sort of a Kid Rock thing where he said you're going to run for Senate, and then they put him to task. Like, are you really going to do that? And he's like, hell no.
Yeah, but I think it was always a joke. Like, it was always a joke for Alice Cooper. So my dad was way off on that. I guess that's what he was referring to. But I was thinking that's how rumors get started, right?
That is. Is there anything else you got hit the mark? Did he actually bring a tooth on stage and brush the cavity off?
I didn't want to be honest with you. I don't want to know if that's not true. That's too good to not be true, if you ask me.
Break your grandmother's heart. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get that out there, a little fact check of our little mini episode, which was 50 minutes long.
The only fact check that matters.
Do you have your computer plugged in this time?
I'm ready. Yeah, it's
got enough battery
all
left.
Plugged in.
Enough battery left.
It's all
battery life.
All in. Yeah, I was on a hot rant there, but got cut off.
Thank God, that was bad, dude.
Well, I realized.
Well, hopefully we get into it here.
Yeah. Well, I realized after listening
that
to
DJ
it,
TJ comment got you on fire.
I didn't realize
the funniest part.
I didn't realize you were talking about Donald Trump Jr. the whole time. After I listened to it, I was talking about the actual.
I know you were. You were too. I feel like when you heard that, your ears were just like buzzing. You're like, you're just head.
I was ringing.
Yeah. You were You were so furious you saw red, I guess is the phrase.
I can't believe it.
So anyway. Oh, John, you have anything else to say? You have any corrections or anything that you want to bring up ahead of time? A little review or anything like that?
No, I think I pretty much nailed it. All of it.
Should we just get started?
We're going to get cracking. So what's the plan here?
I think we did. Well, we did talk about, I think I mentioned to you as a sign of good faith, I want to re-flip a coin so that we can, you could have first pick today. I think that's only fair. I don't want to have first pick every time we do this. It's not fair.
Should I flip the Articles of Confederation? I've got the Articles. I've got the Constitution.
I don't know if you should throw those.
Got the Constitution of the Confederate States of America, but I probably might have to edit that out. I don't know if I can say that. Got the Italian Constitution too. Well, you got a quarter.
None of these things can flip, so I don't know.
All right, if you got a quarter,
we're gonna flip another banquet. I got a fresh banquet here. I'll open it up and then we can flip it.
Go for it.
All right. Little sound effect for you here. The back says, "Be proud of doing it your own way." I don't think anything's more fitting than that. Do you want to call it in the air? I guess since I'm flipping, you're calling, right?
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to flip. Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Tails.
What did we say tails was?
It's the bottom of the cap. If you can read the words that aren't banquet.
Oh, okay. Well, it's banquet.
I need a visual proof.
I can't pick my computer up. It's plugged into a million things.
Okay.
I'll send you a picture. I'll send you a picture.
I'll take your word for it. I mean, it is weighted, right? It's not really a fair flip, but I'll allow it.
Well, I would say that, but last time it was tails, so I'm going to go first. So we're at Queens, and we're going to pick women. I know who John's going to pick. I'm going to go with Molly Pitcher.
For what? Which card?
That'd be the Queen of Hearts, right?
Zing. Queen of Hearts.
Molly Pitcher, Ludwig Hayes. She, during the Battle of Monmouth, which just happens to be the battle that I was talking about with George Washington when he told Charles Lee to grow a pair or bail, and Charles Lee bailed, and George Washington just went ahead and brought the soldiers back into battle. Anyway, during that battle, she was delivering water to the soldiers, and her husband actually got injured during that battle in the artillery, and she took over for him, started loading cannons and shooting them. I don't know what her... Yeah, so I thought that's pretty cool. That's a pretty bad A of a woman, and she should be remembered for that. I know the name sounded familiar, but I didn't really know anything about her. I don't know anything about after the Revolutionary War, unfortunately, but those are the facts that I had. I thought that was cool, so that's my first pick. I think it's a cool woman.
Well, it's interesting you say facts about what may well be a myth. Molly Pitcher.
Oh, that's a myth?
Well, Molly Pitcher may not be a real person. It may be an amalgam of a couple different women.
Oh, really?
Yes.
But I'm saying Molly Pitcher, Ludwig Hayes was my pick.
So Mary Ludwig
in any case,
Hayes. Who's Margaret Corbin then?
I don't know. If it's a conglomerate of women, then it's a conglomerate of women. It makes it a better pick. I'm good with that.
Well, I had some other interesting facts on her too, but since I didn't pick her, I won't divulge those.
Well, no, that's the whole point. What are they? Anything good?
Yeah, they're pretty good. So she was at that cannon. She took it up. Mary Ludwig Hayes got to the cannon. She was there with her husband.
Molly.
No, her name is Mary. Molly was a colloquial name for women named Mary at the time, according to my research. Anyway, her husband, William Hayes, was an artilleryman who collapsed. I think either he was injured or he fell from heat exhaustion. So she took up the cannon, and a British cannonball flew between her legs and tore off the bottom of her skirt.
Tight.
To which she replied, "Well, that could have been worse." But that doesn't sum up.
Is that like if she was a man, it would have been worse? Is that, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, it would have hurt. It was close. it was a close shot. And then there was another woman by the name of Margaret Corbin, who a year earlier at Fort Washington, November 1776, similar situation. She was a nurse, and she was accompanying her husband, John Corbin, and 2,800 Americans who were defending Fort Washington from 8,000 attacking Hessians. And similar situation. He fell. She stepped up to the plate. And actually, she then was the very first woman to be given a pension by Congress ever. But it was half of what a man was given.
Mm-hmm.
So, left a little sour taste in the mouth.
I think.
Why'd you make that pick?
Because she's cool. I think I'm going to side with these later picks. I'm going to side with the more military involved in the Revolutionary War people than the aftermath of. I mean, I'm going to obviously have to get involved with the Constitution and all that other stuff, but I think that the people who fought in the Revolutionary War are more interesting people on this lower level, below the
We're at the Queens.
top 7, as they say. Yeah, but
face cards.
I mean, yeah, but it's women, That's why we're picking them. Now, would she be above my jacks in, importance? I don't necessarily think so, but I think that might be partly due to lack of information from historians on women during this time period. Blame them.
I will blame,
or lack of preparation on my end.
A little bit A, a little bit of B. Not a problem. No, I mean, I found a similar situation. There was only so many I feel like I could have picked from.
Probably a lot more. We'll make that note.
I will.
It's a shame.
Yeah, there's a few.
Well, let's keep going.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with, for my Queen of Spades, Miss Deborah Sampson.
Oh, you dirty dog. You dirty dog. You knew I was talking about her and you picked her.
You kind of showed your hand.
Dog. Don't use my phrase in defending your pick. You are a dirty dog.
I'm going to pick more military women. It's like, well, if what's her name's going to fall, I will just pick this one because you showed your hand. I want to see you sweat a little. So I got
you dirty dog. You dirty dog.
Deborah Sampson, a.k.a. Robert Shirtliff. She's a woman who effectively disguised herself as a man, fought in the Continental Army, At the Battle of Tarrytown, she was the first woman, as far as the records show, to take a bullet in action during the American War for Independence. And in that battle, she got shot in the leg. And instead of kind of seeking any kind of care or finding a surgeon or what have you, which would have outed her as a woman, she decided to take a penknife and literally rip out the bullet herself. But the thing about 18th century, weaponry at that time, a lot of it was grape shot. So she wasn't able to get all of it. So it would have exploded and there would have been little shards and pieces still within her leg. So it got a little infected. And then eventually she had to go into a hospital, and it's there that she was discovered to, in fact, be a woman. But she was super worried about it, thought the heat was going to come down on her, reprimanded and whatnot. But turns out, her level of bravery was rewarded by General John Patterson. And she
honorably discharged and given a pension after fighting for it, though. But she was also given a pension.
Yep.
And her husband fought to get more, and I think he died before they did
happened.
Get awarded more, but then he died.
That's right.
R.I.P. I was thinking, when I was reading that, obviously we think of the more current examples of this in pop culture, such as Joanna Man or She's the Man. I think the Amanda Bynes movie, the Disney movie Motocrossed, if you ever saw that one.
I'll have to look it up. I've seen Joanna Man.
She's like, obviously her brother, she's in a family that does dirt bike racing, and her brother breaks his ankle. But for some reason she dressed up like a dude and she like tricked her family for a while. Her family thought that she was actually a dude. I don't know. I forget. I thought you were going to, it's available on Disney Plus if you have
I thought you were thinking more white chicks, but I don't know. Maybe that's another one of the same.
That's another good one. But I was thinking like Robert Shirtliff is kind of like one of those names where it's like
tongue in cheek,
like telling somebody.
Yeah,
like,
she knew.
kind of like if they're like, she's like, I'm going to try to join the Continental Army, telling her like girlfriends, and then they're like, well, what if they ask you to lift your shirt? She's like, that's a good last name, Shirtliff.
Yeah, and she was super tall for the time too. Like the average dude was like 5'5", and she was like 5'7". So she already had the height on her side, and
I believe she actually got put into like a more esteemed like special ops force of the army, where like the best of the best actually were put into because of her like height and physique and whatnot. Well, physique. Shouldn't have said that.
Yikes. No, she's a beast. She's a founding mother.
Good for her. Deborah Sampson. Mother. Don't forget her name. Deborah Sampson.
AKA
no one,
honestly,
is that the first time you ever heard of her? I feel like that's a shame. That's a cool story.
It is a cool story. Drunk History did a bit on it. But beyond that, no, I've never heard of her before. And I didn't hear about her before I saw the Drunk History bit 2 days ago. So
nice research.
I did that as a snipe. I wanted to snipe that from you, so sorry.
I know you did. I'm actually playing nice, I thought. I'm going to pick. I don't want to snipe yours because she's boring, so I'm just going to pick the obvious other answer.
What card is this?
Should be.
We could say
this is going to be the Queen of Diamonds. Doesn't really. I don't know how you can't follow that, but yeah,
for
Queen of Diamonds
for any of our listeners.
Yeah, we go with Abigail Adams. That would be that. Well, hey, I mean, she is the wife of my King of Diamonds, I believe, John Adams. I think she was pretty cool. She a lot of responsibility on her shoulders during the war. He wasn't around, so she had to raise the kids, run the household, basically as a single mother, which is something to be commended.
Deciding to get smallpox inoculation was pretty bold for her and her children. It's a pretty bold move.
And I was an advisor to him. What notes do I have? She actually told him to include women in the government or there'd be a revolt in the future, which I guess she was right about. I guess you could ask Susan B. Anthony about that. She was in charge of the suffrage movement, I believe. So a little bit of foreshadowing there. Her quote is, "All men would be tyrants if they could," which is a pretty good quote, actually. I like that. Got to respect that. And she was financially responsible for the Addams family, which is, well, now that I say the Addams family, that's kind of funny. I never thought of that, but she ran the books, which is cool. She was kind of a boss of the household, so I gotta give that to her, and that's why she gets my Queen of Diamonds.
Yeah, I think most women, especially with their husbands, if they were out like he was, the amount of time he was out, they did run the household. So very important. Traditional women, very important. She was one of them. Although, like you said, she did have some foresight. Yeah, she's good. Super well known, commendable. I respect it. Do you have
I think
else
she was a very big proponent of the revolution too, which I think she was pretty vocal about that on her end as much as she could be.
She was, and I think if anything, she probably made her husband that much more bearable, because I think without her, he would have really gotten nowhere, because he really was unliked, and I'm sure she had a part in having him try to mellow him out a little bit to actually be able to be, taken seriously or actually be dealt with, because he was annoying.
Okay, calm down.
So
he's like he's one of the greatest men of our country, but you're calling him annoying. That's fine.
Yeah, I don't know. I started watching this little musical called 1776, and it opens up with the actor who played Mr. Feeney in Boy Meets World. It was a musical in the late 60s turning into a movie, and it opens up with Adam. He plays John Adams, and from the get-go, you could just tell he's on everyone's nerves. He's up everyone's this and that. We got to declare independence right this second. Like, not even everyone from not all the states had even shown up to the convention yet, to the First Continental Congress. He's up everyone's about it.
He's definitely like the friend that like you kind of like him, but then when you bring him around in public, they're like, oh, God, this guy is unbearable.
Yeah.
This insufferable John Adams.
And I think his wife
Ben Franklin was definitely.
I think his wife knew how insufferable he was, so I think she helped him out a lot.
Yeah, there you go.
Those letters.
So she was. I feel like if sometimes you meet couples and the wife's cooler than the husband, I feel like this would be one of those situations.
100%.
Similar to your situation.
It may well be.
He's cooler than you.
I think that I would have to agree. I would concede that fact.
We'll have to get her on the pod someday.
Oh yeah, she'd love to call in.
Yeah, for sure. All right, go ahead. Let's not dilly-dally.
All right, well, then I'm going to go with my Queen of Clubs. I'm going to stay up in Massachusetts with another founding mother from that area and an actual friend of the Addams, at least for a time, Mercy Otis Warren. She is one of the most important founding people of the generation. She's responsible for writing the first, call it, solid biography or solid history of the American Revolution, a history of the rise. She's a poet. She had a tongue like fire. She always spoke her mind. She actually ripped John Adams pretty hard when he was president, calling him out. Pretty staunch anti-federalist, said the Constitution shouldn't be ratified without a Bill of Rights. So I know Matt was kind of commenting in our sound check the other night that I have kind of a bias towards those who were more skeptical of ratifying the Constitution. So she's very much in that light. And yeah, she is the Colombian patriot, as she called herself. And she's a boss.
Hats off to her. I had in here, she wrote the first historical account of the revolution.
That's what I was going for.
Which is cool. Did you say that?
Yes.
You did?
History of the Rise, Progress, and Termination of the American Revolution.
Oh, you just read the title. Okay. That was the first historical account of the revolution. That'd be cool to read. I assume you can purchase it probably on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a 3-volume.
I'd like to hear DJ TJ's thoughts on that book.
1,317 pages long.
Yikes.
It goes from the Stamp Act through to Yorktown and everything in between.
Pretty cool. It'd probably be a pretty interesting read.
But if no one,
I heard it was like people say it was pretty good. From like the people of the time were saying that it was a good representation of, or good, summary of how it was.
Jefferson promoted it. He really liked it. John Adams, not so much, but that's not shocking based on what we were just discussing about him. So.
All right, well let's give it off to these 4 women. I think they're definitely deserving of our time of discussing, and I think people need to know more about them. And if you would like, definitely fact check what we have said and do a little bit more research, and you'll learn some stuff.
And I'll say one more thing.
Oops, that wasn't supposed to be a laugh.
I will say, if anyone thinks we omitted or we snubbed anyone, we'd love to hear it. Let us know. Drop us an email.
Yeah, for sure.
Leave a comment in the comment section.
I will say I don't want to hear about Betsy Ross in the comment section.
Noted.
just I heard it's a fib that she didn't actually make the flag. I would have picked her.
Does she get her sources from the same place as your dad does?
I heard that like the first Flag Day in the late 1800s, that her grandson was walking around saying that she did that, but the timing actually doesn't work as far as like when she was doing it. I don't know. All right.
Okay. That's why we're doing this podcast. We're here to learn.
All right. Hats off to those women. They were great women. I love me a powerful woman, and that was 4 of them right there. So good for them. You want to go to Jack's?
Yeah. I'm ready to roll into the Jacks.
I'm going to go. All right. My Jack of Hearts. I'm going to have to pick the only one left on the plate here. Just the top dog. The only top dog left on here is John Jay. I'm going to pick John Jay.
Okay. Go for it.
You don't like that pick?
No, that's trash.
I mean,
that's fine.
Fine.
If you have a Federalist bent.
First Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, wrote Federalist Papers, which we keep saying that. We haven't really expanded on what those were, but it was basically Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison.
Yes. He
wrote a bunch of papers to promote the Constitution, the signing of the Constitution.
Specifically in the state of New York. Yeah. They were all addressed to the citizens of New York. I mean, when we talk about the ratification of the Constitution, people just think, Federalist Papers, that was for the whole country. They specifically...
I don't think many people are thinking that at all. I think they're saying, what are the Federalist Papers? So I think that
they were...
fair enough to say.
Written by, Hamilton, Madison, and Jay. They all took anonymous names. Hamilton was primarily the ringleader, but the other two had major contributions, obviously. And it was written to the people of the state of New York, and they only had such a moderate effect. The Constitution only passed by 3 votes in New York. So even with these Federalist Papers, we give them a lot more, from a historical lens, we give them a lot more precedent, or they were a lot more prescient than they really were at the time. Just fun fact. So...
yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so he wrote those, the Treaty of Paris. He was involved with the Treaty of Paris along with Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and there was another one. He got involved with Thomas Paine a lot. What was that guy's name? Henry something. I don't know. 4th guy was involved with that. Anyway. Treaty of Paris and the Jay Treaty. The Jay Treaty was a hot topic back in the old 1790s.
Mercy Otis Warren was not a fan.
Well,
or a lot of people weren't. Half the country, probably more than half the country were not fans. But anyway,
so I think the issue was there was a lot of stuff left off of the Treaty of Paris, which was ultimately what saw, like, what do you say? I guess you say ended the Revolutionary War. There was some stuff left off of it, and they were kind of wanting to retweak it a little bit while the British were getting involved in the French Revolution. I think they wanted to. There were some things left off of there, and one of the main things was, America had to repay their pre-war British debts, but then at the same time, the British were going to pay for the damage to exporting ships that they had been. It's all based on the British kept attacking merchant ships coming from America to France, right? And I don't know.
It was basically Hamilton's. I mean, it bears Jay's name, but Hamilton's fingerprints are all over it. I mean, he was the treasurer at the time, and Jay was more or less basically carrying his position.
Britain was gonna leave there were some forts that they were still occupying, and Britain was gonna leave those, and America was gonna pay their debt. England was gonna pay for the damage to the ships. I said that already. The Federalists were very much in favor of it, and the Republicans were very much against it. The American people, the general American people, felt that we were bowing down to the British, so they were not fans of it. Washington did support it because he felt like it was a strong economic move and was able to keep commerce with Europe. So at the end of the day, controversial person, controversial pick, I understand, but the Treaty of Paris, and I don't know, kind of a cool name. I'll give him that. So my pick.
Okay.
Not happy about that one.
All right. Some, as I had the exact phrase here, pro-French Jeffersonians saw the treaty as a sellout.
Yeah, I mean, it was, but it also helped, I think, at the end of the day. Kept us out of the French Revolution. I don't know. Because the Republicans were very much in favor of the French Revolution and the revolutionaries of France. And
certainly at the beginning.
They all...
But then,
did I say that?
Well, once the Reign of Terror kind of kicked off, I think even Jefferson started to distance himself. And then once Citizen Genet came over and asked for the help of
that guy,
Washington and everyone, even Jefferson was like, okay, this guy's a little too much. And then he kind of started to distance himself. And then, once the Reign of Terror happened and everyone was getting their heads lopped off, even at that point, some of the Jeffersonians were like, yeah, probably shouldn't get leaning too hard into this. But that didn't mean that they wanted to go into the...
That was after the Jay Treaty. I'm just trying to set the stage for why the Jay Treaty was controversial at the time.
It showed more of a leaning towards the British. Anyway, as you've stated so eloquently. All right, moving on. You're giving me a wide range. Now I've got a plethora of choices here. Almost too many. I don't even know what to do.
Well, I just took one off, John.
But that guy,
such a freaking...
He wasn't in my top 10.
Well, that's ridiculous. He should have been.
I mean, I'll just...
Some people consider him a top 7, so...
I have to go with it. There's some people I want to pick, but I would be amiss if I'm trying to be honest with these rankings too. And I gotta go with Roger Sherman, straight up, as my jack of...
That's a good pick.
Spades. I think...
That's a good pick. I like him. I like him. You don't like him?
He's a boss. I mean, he's a boss. I mean, he... First and foremost, most important contribution would be the Connecticut Compromise, which was a way, call it a bridge between what the Virginia plan was offering and what the New Jersey plan was offering. And you basically had two very distinct ways that they wanted the government to look. So the Virginia plan had, had a bicameral legislature, both based on representative proportions. Whereas the New Jersey plan had just one unicameral legislature that was based on state and not population. And so the Connecticut Compromise, long story short, kind of merged those two together. And that's why we have the Senate the way we do, where every state gets 2 representatives from the Senate. And then you have the House of Representatives, which is based on proportional representation. There's some other tweaks in there too, but we don't have to get full into that. But he's also quoted, Thomas Jefferson said he never said a wrong thing, so he was not the greatest orator in the world, but it's one of those things when he did speak, he, had a lot of knowledge and history and tradition to back up what he was saying. He was, I think after Ben Franklin, he was maybe the second oldest to sign.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Yeah. Yep. He was an old one. He signed all 4 of the big 4.
Yeah. I mean, he was a boss, very pious man. Religion played a big part in his life and his family's.
Yeah, the proportional representation is a big thing. That's. I mean, if you think about it, that's a really big part of our government today. So I will say too, did he not believe? Yeah, I think he thought that the federal government officials should be elected by state officials, not by the people. Am I correct in that?
As part of the compromise? Well, he wouldn't have been the only...
I don't know if it was part of the compromise, but that was, from what I got, that was his opinion, which kind of ties into where, for example, like the senators would have been elected by the state representatives as opposed to like elected in a general election, I think is what he was getting to.
Oh, yeah. Well, most people back then, were against democracy, even the more Jeffersonians were not in favor of a democracy like we use the term, where everyone gets a vote, or anyone without property qualifications, especially. Like, yeah, I would think almost to a man, if people knew that, if the founders knew that the Senate was direct election, I don't think they would have told us to throw the whole thing out 100 years ago when that amendment came in. I think they would have started another revolution right then and there.
And the amendment you're talking about who did vote in the senators? It was the state representatives, correct? The House
state legislatures. Yeah, they decided on the 2 senators, and then they sent them to Congress.
So you vote. So it still was tied to the public in a sense that the state representatives were voted, and then they would appoint your senator.
Yeah. So effectively at the time,
I think I assume like part of it is you don't have you want the general public to feel represented in the federal government still.
No, at the time it was not even about the general public. It was about landholders, those who actually had property, because as many of the founders would attest, to have property is basically to have skin in the game, as they would say. If you're tied to the land and you have property, kind of ties you down, but then you have that much more to be concerned about. If you're a thrifter or a pauper, some vagabond wandering around and you have a right to vote.
Watch with those words. Jeez, oh man, I'm going to have to edit all those out.
But that's just what it was, So they always most of them feared a direct democracy. They studied Athens. They knew the history of what happens in a direct democracy, bad things generally. And they always like to have a extra layer between direct democracy and, a monarchical structure. They didn't want a full-on monarchy because both of them could be tyranny. You could have tyranny of the minority and tyranny of the majority. It can go either way. So it's a delicate, you're walking the line between those two. So
that was a good pick.
Thank you. Who you got?
All right. I'm going. That was your Jack of Spades.
Correct.
I'm going to go with my Jack of Hearts. No, sorry, Jack of Diamonds. I am going to pick Nathaniel Green. Boom.
Okay, I like it. No, I like that.
I told you. I mean, I think when you get down this far, it's more to me. I'm more interested in the revolutionary, the actual war aspect of these people.
Interesting. Now, you read a book on another backwood.
I read I read 20 pages of a book. Yes,
that's
which I was going to pick him. I was legitimately going to pick him, but I figured it was a stretch. We're talking about Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox. He just has a cool name. I think he's a pretty cool guy, a pretty cool dude. But Nathaniel Green was the commander of the Continental Army in the Southern Theater. General, whatever, right?
That's right.
And you don't really think about it. I mean, the war in the South was going pretty poorly for a pretty large majority of the time. And you had Horatio Gates down there, Bozo, losing left and right. They lost Charlestown, lost Camden. So things were going very poorly down in the South. And, he came in and kind of turned things around. He had some people. This is the person that I thought you missed on the cards was Daniel Morgan. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you would have thought that was him.
No.
Daniel Morgan was a I don't know. He was I don't know what his level was, but he was a high-ranking soldier and down south. And I think they had some really interesting tactics. I mean, you think about Francis Marion. I don't know if anyone knows about him, but he was unconventional soldier and kind of had more unconventional methods to his fighting the British. And Nathaniel Green, I don't know how involved he was in that, but he did run the campaign, so he was on board with all these ideologies that they had. And Daniel Morgan, the Battle of Cowpens.
Cowpens, yeah.
That's a pretty cool battle. To sum it up, if you watch The Patriot, it's very similar to that final battle scene. Their thought of putting the militia out front, asking them to get 2 shots off, and then they retreated, and and the British thought they had won, followed them, and they came back to a line of like sharpshooting soldiers, and that's how they won the battle. That was a big win for them. That was Daniel Morgan's idea. That's why I thought maybe he was kind of missed on there. If you're going to have Francis Marion on there, I think Daniel Morgan would be a good one for that. He was a Quaker, I guess. You have written on there the Fighting Quaker. He had a part of the Whiskey Rebellion, simmering that hot pot down over in Pittsburgh area. And yeah, I think he's just a pretty cool guy. People don't think about the South. I think you would agree that people don't think of the Southern theater of the war as much as they should, because it could have gone poorly down there, even though the war was ended down south. But yeah.
Yeah, I think we keep a lot of our collective consciousness of the American Revolution in general up in New England and in Boston, maybe down to Philadelphia.
Unless you're Mel Gibson.
Unless you're Mel Gibson. But he's made some pretty wild movies that you would say are not in the, most popular space. So, yeah.
All right.
Good pick.
The Roger Sherman pick was a good one. I thought I was going to be able to sneak him in. I should have picked him over John Jay. Damn.
That's okay.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay, so I've got another my jack of clubs, right? Okay, I'll see you. I'll keep it with a fighter. I've got a few different people I could go with here, but I've read a biography on this person, and he's a real beast. I'm going to go with a foreigner. He's a foreign fighter. He was a foreign freedom fighter. Polish peasant prince, Tadeusz Kościuszko.
Who?
Tadeusz Kościuszko. He was the engineer.
What kind of pick is that? You can't even say his name.
It's really complicated. Check it out.
Well, why did you pick it?
Because I read a book on it. I mean, I couldn't read his name.
Never heard of
book.
Him. Never heard of him.
Well, a couple things. He's the engineer of the revolution. We have West Point because we can thank him for giving us the breastworks and what we now have as West Point. He's fought for independence and freedom on 2 continents. He fought for Polish independence from Prussia and Russia. And then he fought
That's a great argument
for American
for
Revolution.
This,
and then he was a colonel in the Continental Army, became a brigadier general, was all said and done. Went back to Poland, fought another uprising. This one was named after him.
Oh, whoa. I don't like this guy. I don't like this pick. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I'm out.
You don't even know who he
You can
is.
keep him. Exactly.
He's got a mountain.
Exactly.
He's got a mountain named after him, and the tallest mountain in Australia is named after him. He was friends with Jefferson. He was given property after the war for his service in Ohio, and he was a very strong proponent of freeing slaves way before a lot of other people were even talking about it. I think, but because he came from another part of the world, he had a different perspective on it.
What's his name again?
Tadeusz Kościuszko. He's not. I heard somewhere that he's not really well known because people can't say his name, which is fair.
Tadeusz Kościuszko? Kościuszko?
Kościuszko. The peasant prince.
Dude, I couldn't have read a book about him. I wouldn't have been able to even just read that name a million times. Did he have a nickname or anything that we could call him?
Andrew Thaddeus Bonaventure Kościuszko was his English name.
Why didn't you just say that?
Because that's not his real. That's not how he was an engineer, statesman, military, national hero of Poland. I mean, worse to this day, Poland is one of our strongest allies, and I think certain people like Kościuszko, as well as the father of the American cavalry, Kazimierz Pulaski. I think that's part of the reason why America and Poland to this day are such strong allies. So we have those 2 gentlemen to thank. I stand by it. It was a good book.
All right. That sounds interesting. Good pick. So those are the jacks. They're done?
Dunzo.
Should we go to the 10s?
We can go to the 10s or we can do honorable mentions. I'm happy with either.
Whoa. All All right. Do you want to just do honorable mentions, one honorable mention each, and then we're ending?
I mean, I've got
we're done with the 4 honorable mentions.
Well, yeah.
Why don't you just make them 10?
I would have made them queens, but, you know.
What is wrong with you?
No, I didn't know we had to do 4. Look, this country wouldn't be what it is without our founding mothers and all the mothers out there. Period. End of story.
Nice save.
The women are the neck
save
to the men, the head, you know, to the neck to the head for sure. But I was, by not having 4 queens to pick, you know, call them the heavy hitters of the well-known founding generation, it was tough. So, you know, you got to squeeze some out. So we've got 4 honorable mentions. I've narrowed it down to people that I would put as face cards.
Okay. Well, that would be your 10s then.
Fine.
You want to do the 10s?
Yeah. Do you have any honorable mentions?
I mean, I have a list. I have more people on my list. I'll go for it.
Okay.
The easiest pick for me is Baron von Steuben.
Nice.
You like that pick?
Solid.
I mean, being a local, living near Valley Forge, he was German, Hessian, Prussian, German.
Well, German and Prussian are German.
He was a German soldier. Came over when we were holed up in Valley Forge. When the army was holed up in Valley Forge over the winter, he came in from
Prussia,
Germany, I guess.
From Prussia.
Prussia
Wasn't unified yet. Yeah.
And the army was just a mess, just in general, not only in condition with how they were living, how they were behaving. I think he came in and really shaped up the army, taught them how to build latrines away from where they were sleeping, which is, just pure, just how to live, basically, and march in a line and just kind of act like an army. And I think before, like leading up to that winter, things weren't looking great for the military or for the war in general. I think America was on the brink of losing. I think they had a couple big victories, that like the classic Trenton battle, I guess, was leading up to that, I believe. And that was a big turning point. Before that, it just wasn't looking good at all. And I think Baron von Steuben helped bring them up to that. At least they could be a somewhat capable army to continue. And I think without that, who knows what would happen, really.
So we came in with that German sternness, because he served under Frederick the Great, who was the king of Prussia, hence the town with the famous
He has
ball.
a sweet statue in Valley Forge, by the way, too. I start and end my runs there.
It's a pretty cool statue.
He's just a cool guy. I think that he stayed in America, I think, after the war. I don't know if he ever went back.
He became a U.S. citizen and granted a large estate in New York.
Good for him.
He
Remember that name.
Baron von Steuben. Is there any other foreigners we should give shout-outs to?
I mean, Lafayette.
I was going to say Lafayette. He's not in the list I had of 4 honorable, but yeah, I have to.
Really?
shout him
That's
out.
what I thought you were going
No,
to pick over that guy.
Well, no, I
that
probably
can't
should
even
have.
pronounce his
That
name.
was a personal pick. That was a personal.
You were just trying to seem smart to our fans.
No.
Yeah.
Nah. Okay.
Yeah.
Lafayette, von Steuben. I mentioned Pulaski. He was one of the 8 honorary citizens. Only like 8 people have ever been awarded honorary citizenship. He's one of them. Yeah. Galvez. I think it's his name, Galvez, the Spanish governor of.
Are these your
Florida.
honorable mentions? Oh, no,
I'm just saying the foreigners. We were
guys.
going to put foreigners on cards, and then, but anyway, that's enough of those foreigners.
One could argue Alexander Hamilton's a foreigner. I said
I
it.
think it's hard to be considered a.
Frankly, we're all foreigners. We're all foreigners, if you think about it.
I think he's.
I'm probably the least foreign between the two of us. You're barely an American, but I'll leave that where it lies.
So you got.
Yeah, go ahead.
Named your guy, dude.
I can't believe you haven't said this one.
Well, we'd mentioned him the other night. We had a bit of a. If any of our listeners were really tuned in, We dropped a name the other night. I was not happy about it. Matt thought my reaction would be a little more stern, but I think I was holding it and reserving it for this evening.
John Dickinson.
Johnny Dickinson, baby.
Yeah.
Penman of the Revolution.
Put him. I can't believe you picked that guy that you can't even pronounce his name.
No, I know.
John Dickinson.
That was maybe silly.
That's just a classic you trying to be.
It was contrarian. It was a little contrarian.
That was ridiculous. That was such a ridiculous pick.
I was trying to
worst
see.
Pick.
No, I was
worst pick. I wouldn't
have. If you didn't say that you were leaning into they had to have fought, like you wanted your face cards.
I did not.
Well,
say
you mentioned
that.
like I want to pick people. The rest, like the way here on out, I want to pick people that have like fought in the Revolution, and I'm like, all right, I'll throw one in there. And yeah, it wasn't the most popular, most well known, but I read a book on him. I thought he was cool. I recommend people read more about him. He's super interesting. He's fought literally all over the world for independence.
That was such a disappointing pick.
He's an engineer. Maybe that's why you're so disappointed in it. I don't know. Maybe you have a. They're important.
Bond there.
Engineers are
Word is
important,
bond.
right? You know.
Mm-hmm. If you say so.
John Dickinson, honorable mention. Penman of the Revolution. Dude was involved in everything. Letters from a Farmer in Pennsylvania. You know, he was the conservative founding father for sure. He definitely held out to the end, you know, before going on in with independence. But once independence was here, he supported it. He led a militia group in Pennsylvania and was governor for a time, for I think a couple months, of both Pennsylvania and Delaware. He considered both home, and just a beast. Dickinson College, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, named in his honor. Yeah. I think he's great.
I drove through there recently. It's a pretty nice college. You ever seen it?
Yes. Went to go see a game there. Basketball game. Molly Pitcher's
nice.
Buried there, actually.
I thought she wasn't a real person.
A person who assumed her name. And I think it was the Corbin lady. The Corbin one, not Hayes. The Corbin pitcher.
All right.
So, yeah. Nice school, nice campus, great guy. I mean, enough said.
Sure, he was number 7 on the Heroes Dex card. So you were upset that they threw him down to 7, and you couldn't even pick him over a guy that you can't even pronounce his name.
It's Polish.
That was such a you pick. I just can't get over it.
Well,
what was his name?
That's
again?
why we do this podcast, to show our viewers and our listeners, our listeners, what we got in our mind, what we have inside. You know, I've been welling up for many years reading these. I've read this thing 7 years ago. Tadeusz Kościuszko. Oh, God.
Hey,
It's Polish. It's Polish.
to each his own. To each his own.
They've been allies with us for years, and he's responsible for it.
All right, I got an honorable mention, or I guess we're going to call these the 10s. I got Sam Adams, something that he probably should. And in reality, I think our list is so off from what the general historian would think. I think Sam Adams probably should have been at least a jack, potentially. If you're considering men as queens, probably a queen, maybe a king. Nah, not a king.
No.
I call him poor man John Hancock. He's kind of similar situation, very involved in the uprising in Massachusetts during the Stamp Act, the Tea Act.
He was in
the
Hancock's
Intolerable
ear
Act.
about getting involved because, like you said before, Hancock was more of a merchant, but it was someone like an Adams who was getting really agitated. I think he got into Hancock's ear at one point, and that's kind of when Hancock started getting more involved.
Thomas Jefferson credits him as probably the biggest pusher of independence, Sam Adams. So I think he was the very, very strong proponent of independence. He was against the central government. He was for being up there. I would consider him Republican or less Federalist than most. He helped write the Articles of the Confederation. Mm-hmm. Pretty cool guy. Beer named after him. Pretty well-known name. Actually, I did read something that when John Adams, he was so popular, Sam Adams was so popular at that time that when John Adams went over to France, he had to explain that he wasn't that Adams.
Right.
When he introduced himself, they thought he was Sam Adams, but he was actually the way lamer John Adams.
Yeah, he probably chapped his ass to have that, but then It wouldn't be John Adams if he wasn't bothered by something.
Well, that sucks when that happens, especially back then, dude.
Yeah.
I've been there. I don't know what that means. I don't know why I said that.
I think we've all had a John Adams moment at least once in our life. That could be a colloquial. That could be a term. Well,
Like John
like a
Adams,
John Adams. You know. Yeah.
Whenever you mess up in life, be like, John Adams, huh?
Maybe they'll make a documentary on HBO about me if I hang out. If I wait 200 years, maybe they'll make a documentary about me and people will love me. I don't know.
What's with that voice?
That's what he sounded like. Archaeological evidence shows. All right, I got 3 more.
I got one that I can't.
I got 3 more here. I got to throw them out. I got George Mason.
Yeah, I don't know why you haven't said that yet. Also, should have been ahead of Scooby Doo, Scoop. What's that guy's name? I can't even remember it.
George Mason. It's just a boss. Father of the Bill of Rights, said he would rather cut off his hand than sign the Constitution. And I know you gave me grief before, but he was someone who was not super against it before the convention. But then once he saw what they were trying to pull, these innovators, as he would describe them, he was like, yeah, nah, I ain't doing that. And he's on record as saying he would cut off his hand.
He still thinks the federal Bill of Rights should supersede the state's Bill of Rights. That's not cool.
Where do you say that?
Wikipedia.
I don't know if I believe that.
I have it written in. He said Roger Sherman didn't agree with him on that one. So, another point for Roger Sherman.
Okay. I don't know about that. I've always heard
Guess
that.
you're too busy rolling about Polish war heroes than learning up on George Mason.
I'll have to check that. I encourage our fans as well to please do the same. Again, for anything we're saying, but that in particular.
Yeah, and give us some feedback. Give us some feedback on our picks.
Yeah.
Here, give it the other two real
Virginia
quick.
Declaration of Rights. Yeah, he was a beast.
Yeah. He was fine. We might be going to his house soon.
We are. I bought tickets.
He had the second largest. He had the second largest plantation in Virginia next to Mount Vernon, and he had the second most slaves in Virginia next to George Washington, or maybe Thomas Jefferson. I don't remember.
But I guess that's a good lead in. I don't know if you could.
But he was against slavery too. But he had slaves.
Many of them were. As Jefferson described it, we've got the wolf by the ears. It was a very, it wasn't great.
Very taboo subject.
Quite, but that won't stop me from kind of pivoting. So arguably the person who maybe owned the most slaves, he also is the namesake of the county in which I currently live in. He was the only Catholic to sign the Declaration of Independence, and he was the longest surviving individual to sign the independence. I'm referring to none other than Charles Carroll of Carrollton. Pride of Ireland. A great founding father that hailed from these Maryland.
He would be proud.
He invented the electoral. He basically gave us the Electoral College. He brought it. It was first put into the Maryland Constitution, and then that was referred back to during the federal constitutional convention. So he's also the father of the Electoral College.
I'm surprised Roger Sherman wasn't more involved in that. I assume he was a proponent of it, but
the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Well,
although I suppose the Electoral College does give. I guess he wouldn't have been because it does give more power to the more populated states.
Yeah. Well, certainly would. Well, Roger Sherman was the compromiser. It was the Virginia and it was the bigger states that wanted more representation, and the little states were like, "Hey, we're sovereign too. You don't get any more say just because you're bigger. Like we are a sovereign entity just because you have more people."
Yep.
Some things never change.
California, we're looking at you.
Yeah.
Gabby, baby.
Gab dog. All right, that's Charles Carroll. He's a beast, too. Also read a book on him. Who else you got?
Oh, that's all I got.
Okay, I'll round it out. John Taylor of Caroline, another Virginian. If anyone If any of our listeners are really curious to know about the history of like corporate welfare in America, you don't have to go much further than John Taylor Caroline. Wrote a lot of great, interesting books and articles and the history of the fusion of state, capital, and government. Yeah. And if you want to know kind of why we have corporate welfare in America, just start with John Taylor of Caroline. That's a wink to one of our favorite fans.
Who?
I can't mention names.
Yeah, that's true.
They know who they are.
There you go.
He said
that does it. Does that do it for the drafting? Because it's getting a little dry. As predicted, this was not as exciting as the top 8. Man, and there are 30 more of these. Is that am I right? Is my math correct?
Chuck Senti somehow did it.
Speaking of Chuck Senti, you want to do a card?
Can you please? Yeah, let's finish the episode with a card, please.
Let's do a card. You want to do 6 of spades?
Sure. For the greatest band to ever grace the halls of the.
You'll get this. This was on your list too. Named after a famous rock musician was named after him. Resourceful naval commander. I don't know if he was named after him. I shouldn't say that. Resourceful naval commander, engaged in many battles with the British at sea. His famous words, "I have not yet begun to fight," rallied the American forces.
John Paul Jones.
There you go. JPJ.
Just went to his mausoleum in Annapolis. Took 100 years to find his body. They thought he died in France, and then they couldn't find his body until like the early 1900s, and they brought him back and buried him under a church in the Naval Academy.
Wait, they thought he died in France?
I think he did, but he did die in France, but then they couldn't find his body. I don't know I forget in what circumstance he died, but he did not die in the U.S. And basically 100 years went by before somebody found him, and they were able to work out that it was in fact his body. Brought him back to.
So he was the naval commander of like arguably the weakest naval brigade in history, probably.
Became a lot stronger as time went on.
Maybe.
But it's pretty wild. I mean, if anyone's ever in Annapolis, the Naval Academy is super interesting, and the history in the museum there is super interesting. But going to the chapel, I should say, and he's down there, like underneath the altar. Like he's just got this big old thing.
Wait, you see his body?
No, he's in like it's like, what do you call it? He's not in a casket. He's 8 feet above the ground. A tomb. It's like 8 feet above the ground. It's got like dolphins and things on it, and like ships, and like the woodwork's pretty cool. And there's like columns, and it's a full on Republican crypt looking thing.
It's a crypt.
Crypt, yeah. And there's like things about his history when where he was sailing and the ships he commanded and all that stuff all around.
That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Can you give me one more? And then we'll call it.
A fiend. He's a fiend. We're an hour and 6 minutes in. I'm sure we have a lot of listeners after this one.
Well, this is for the diehard. This is the bonus content for the diehard fans.
All right, you pick the card.
I have to know what they got up there. Let's go
Going face.
Let's go King of Clubs. I wait with bated breath.
Dubbed the first American for early support of colonial unity, later as U.S. Minister to France, secured vital French support for American independence. Man, this could go many ways. I wonder which one you're picking.
Ben Franklin?
Yeah, you're right. I could have gone John Adams' way, I feel like.
Okay, right? Yeah.
Somewhat. Yeah. If our listeners have been following, we've been kind of talking about that too. There were a lot of people over in France at the time because we needed their help.
We did.
And Ben Franklin was over there. I think I said he dressed as like a scrub over there so that people would think he was not very intelligent and try to feel bad for us Americans trying to fight the big bad British. And it worked.
It's a smart move. He was very cunning.
It is a smart move. I do that too. That's why I dress the way I dress.
Got you a job. You got a job. So.
It's true.
Well, fans,
I mean, hope
you enjoyed this one.
So that's. I think is that the end of our drafting cards? Are we going to be
believe
going
so.
any deeper? I don't think so. Yeah.
But do we want to keep unveiling cards?
We can still unveil cards. We'll do that for sure. I think that'll be a fun thing to do. And I hope you guys liked this. We're going to post the pictures of the new cards that we have, and hopefully we can think of something else to do after this. I still can't believe that pick of that Polish guy, dude. I can't believe that was so classic, dude.
Will you do me the favor? Will you do me the honor of actually looking him up?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, I'll do that if the listeners do.
Maybe put a poll out. Can we put a poll out on him?
I'll put a poll out. Yeah, well, I'll see if anyone...
He got a poll stuck through.
I will... Did he?
Yeah, he got in his uprising in 1794. He took a pike, and then he ended up going to a Russian prison. Catherine the Great picked him up, and then eventually he was let go when her son came into power. Dude was a beast, I'm telling you. He's the boss.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. Well, that was good. I think if there's nothing else, I think we'll call it quitsies, and we'll move forward from here and keep it going with some more fun content for the listeners. Maybe we should do a whole episode on that Polish guy. What's his name
that'd be
again?
great. I love it. Tadeusz
name again?
Kosciuszko.
Kosciuszko. All right. Well, that's it for this one. We'll be back. We'll be back in a week with some more content for you. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on Twitter at Nailing History. Any plugs for you, John?
Nope. Just go out there. If we said anything about any of these founders, go out, read yourself, check them out, and
do our work for us. Yeah.
No, just engage with the content, or just if you find anything interesting, there's tons of books on all these people. So, or just give us grief about them too. We'll take anything.
You don't take criticism well.
No.
Ask that to DJ TJ.
That's fair. I guess I'm the John Adams of this podcast. I guess
that's actually, hey,
it's all said and done.
I mean,
you hated that Kosciuszko guy. He's the engineer of the revolution. You appalled by him, and I'm giving John Adams all this grief. Maybe I really am John Adams. Oh God, incarnate. We'll dissect that next week.
Speaking of which, hey, I got to ask you, how do you spell your name Jon or John?
Jon.
Huh. Okay. I'm Italian of you.
I'm a Jonathan. I'm not John. And then when I abbreviate, I just go by John, but my name is Jonathan.
And Kosciuszko to Kosciuszko went as Andrew. Interesting. Then you couldn't use that as his name. You had to be all.
He went by Thaddeus, actually.
Oh, okay. That's a cool name. All right. Until next time, this was a long one for you guys. Hope you held on this one. We'll see you in a week.
We're going to wrap up with a song dedicated to all of those founding mothers out there.
And we say bye-bye.